Ethan adjusted the strap of his worn leather bag as he walked through the wide corridors of Stellar Nexus, the largest space station on the edge of the Milky Way. The station hummed with life. Traders, diplomats, explorers, and alien species of all shapes and sizes moved through the endless metal hallways. Neon lights reflected off polished floors, and screens floated in mid-air, displaying information about trade deals, starship arrivals, and interstellar news. Humans had only recently begun to make a mark among the stars, and Ethan, young and curious, felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. His mission was simple but important: negotiate a trade of rare minerals from a nearby asteroid with the Xylarian delegation. But as he approached the grand atrium, he felt something unexpected, a sense of awe that had nothing to do with trade. There, in the middle of the atrium, surrounded by Xylarians in flowing robes that shimmered like liquid metal, was Princess Lyria. Her presence was quiet but commanding. She didn't speak, didn't wave, didn't bow. She simply stood with a straight posture, observing the crowd with wide, luminous eyes. Those eyes were unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. They glowed softly, changing color like sunlight through crystal water, blue, silver, and gold all at once. They seemed to see everything, yet nothing directly. Ethan's footsteps slowed. He had studied alien species, but something about Lyria felt different. She was a princess, yes, but there was a vulnerability in her gaze, as though the weight of her entire world rested on those luminous eyes. The crowd around her continued to bustle, but Ethan felt an invisible bubble of silence form around her. Perhaps it was her reputation. Xylarians were telepathic, and their emotions often overwhelmed humans in small doses, but Ethan felt drawn, compelled to speak, and before he could stop himself, words slipped out. "Your eyes are beautiful." The world seemed to pause. Lyria froze, her pupils dilated, shimmering more brightly than before. No human had ever spoken to her like that. No human had ever seen her, not just looked, but truly seen. Around them, the chatter of the atrium dimmed. Aliens glanced sideways, curious or confused. A few Xylarian nobles raised their eyebrows in disapproval. But Ethan didn't move. He kept his gaze fixed on her, nervous but sincere. Lyria's lips didn't move. She didn't respond with words. She couldn't, not in the way humans did. Instead, a series of images, feelings, and flashes entered Ethan's mind like faint ripples. Surprise, curiosity, a touch of fear, and something warm like a sunrise. Ethan stumbled back, shaking his head. Telepathic signals from a Xylarian could be overwhelming, but he didn't feel threatened, only amazed. He had expected silence, maybe a polite nod, but not this. Not the flood of raw emotion. I didn't mean to startle you," he said quietly, though he doubted she could hear the words in the usual sense. I wanted you to know." The princess's gaze softened. Though she didn't speak, the warmth of her reaction lingered in the air. Ethan realized that words, no matter how awkward or clumsy, had meaning even across species. His honesty had reached her. A guard cleared his throat, reminding Ethan he was a visitor and that the princess could not be approached freely. Ethan nodded, stepping back with a polite bow, but his eyes never left hers. He felt a strange connection, one that transcended language. Over the next hour, Ethan found himself wandering the station, but always glancing back at the princess. He noticed how she moved gracefully, almost like she was floating rather than walking. Her attendants followed silently, their robes whispering against the floor. Every few steps she paused to look at something, a display, a passerby, but then her gaze returned to the atrium as if she were searching for something unseen. Ethan's curiosity grew. How could someone so royal and powerful seem so lonely? He wondered what it was like to be able to communicate only through thought, never aloud, never directly with the people around you. It must be isolating. Later, by chance, he found himself near the Celestial Gardens, a quiet area of the station meant to mimic Xylarian homeworld flora. Exotic plants glowed softly in the artificial light, and a gentle water stream trickled over polished stones. He paused, catching his breath and hoping to calm his racing mind. And then, unexpectedly, she appeared. Lyria stood across the stream, her eyes fixed on him, not harshly, not accusingly, but with that same quiet intensity. She didn't say anything. She didn't move. She simply observed. Ethan swallowed hard. I'm Ethan," he said. "I don't usually. I've never. I just wanted to." His words trailed off. He realized they didn't matter as much as his intention. Lyria tilted her head slightly. In that small gesture, Ethan felt she was acknowledging him. He stepped closer, careful not to invade her space. He could feel her thoughts again, tentative, cautious, like a bird testing its wings. But also curious, I mean it, he said softly. Your eyes, they're unlike anything I've ever seen. They're alive. Beautiful. There was no reply, only that steady, shimmering gaze. But Ethan understood. He had reached her. For the first time, the princess allowed herself to linger near a human unguarded. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her eyes said everything: wonder, surprise, and a flicker of trust. Minutes passed. A few Xylarians walked past, giving Ethan strange looks. But he didn't care. He had glimpsed something extraordinary. He had connected with someone whose world was entirely different yet shared a simple human truth: admiration, honesty, and respect. Eventually, Lyria's attendants called her away. She gave one last glance to Ethan, a silent promise that she had noticed, that she had felt, that she remembered. Ethan watched her disappear into the crowd, feeling both elated and bewildered. He had expected nothing, and yet he had encountered something unforgettable. He had seen the heart of a princess through her eyes, and perhaps, in some small way, she had seen him too. As he walked back to his quarters, Ethan realized something important. This encounter would change him. Humans often underestimated their ability to touch the lives of others, to create connections even across galaxies. But today a few simple words had done just that. They had reached a princess who could not speak, and they had left a mark. And deep down, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The celestial gardens were quiet now. Ethan leaned against a smooth stone railing, still thinking about the princess, Lyria, and the strange, unspoken connection they had shared. His heart still raced when he remembered her luminous eyes, and he couldn't shake the memory of the warmth and curiosity they had expressed. He had explored many worlds, met countless alien species, and even negotiated tricky trade deals. But nothing had prepared him for Lyria. She was different, not only because she was royalty, but because she existed in a world so alien that human words seemed almost useless, and yet she had understood him. Later that evening, Ethan wandered the station again, drawn to the gardens. He hoped to see her one more time. The air was soft with the scent of glowing Xylarian flora, and small streams of liquid crystal ran through the paths, reflecting the lights above. He found a quiet bench near a waterfall, where the sound of water trickling over stones made the place feel like a sanctuary. To his surprise, Lyria appeared again. She was standing at the edge of the waterfall, her eyes fixed on him. This time she did not look startled or confused. There was calmness in her gaze, a quiet invitation to approach. Ethan took a deep breath. "Hi again," he said softly. "I hope I'm not bothering you." Lyria tilted her head slightly. There was no verbal reply, but a feeling entered Ethan's mind. It was gentle, like a breeze brushing against his thoughts. A sense of curiosity, almost cautious but also welcoming. He sat on the bench, careful to give her space. "I've never met anyone like you before," he admitted. "Not just anyone with your abilities. It must be lonely sometimes, not speaking the way humans do." Again, no words. But Ethan could feel a flicker of emotion, something like relief, as if his honesty eased a weight she carried. He realized that Lyria didn't need to speak to understand. Her thoughts were fluid, images and feelings flowing into his mind, soft and indirect, but still clear enough to sense her attention. Ethan smiled nervously. "I don't know if you understand me fully, but I want to know you, even if it's just in small ways." She stepped closer, her gaze steady. He could sense her interest growing, tentative, like someone learning to trust. Her thoughts were faint images now, simple, not overwhelming. Shapes of stars, waves, and what seemed to be laughter, though not human laughter. Ethan realized she was trying to communicate, but she had no words to match her feelings. "Okay," he said, nodding. "We'll do this slowly. No rush." Over the next few days, Ethan returned to the gardens whenever he could. Each time Lyria appeared, and slowly they began to develop their own way of communication. Words were sometimes useless, but gestures, expressions, and small human actions, like offering a flower or smiling, carried meaning. Lyria responded with subtle shifts in her posture, flashes of color in her eyes, and thought images that Ethan learned to interpret over time. One afternoon, Ethan brought a small device from his quarters. It was a hollow projector, capable of displaying simple images in mid-air. He activated it, showing a scene of a human sunset, with golden light reflecting over water. Lyria's eyes widened. A faint image entered Ethan's mind, her version of wonder, amazement at something she had never experienced. She reached out a delicate hand toward the Orion Starliner, a massive diplomatic vessel, glided silently through space. Its sleek hull reflected the distant light of a nearby star, giving it a shimmering appearance like liquid metal. The ship was a hub of interstellar politics, a place where humans, Xylarians, and countless other alien species met to discuss trade, alliances, and the fragile balance of peace in the galaxy. Ethan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he walked through the polished corridors. He had been invited as a human observer, a small but important part of the delegation. More importantly, he would be accompanying Princess Lyria, who had agreed to attend this gathering with him. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. Xylarians were known for their strict customs and hierarchy. A single misstep could insult a noble, spark a feud, or worse, create diplomatic tension. Ethan had studied their culture extensively, but he knew that theory and reality were very different. As they entered the grand chamber, Ethan was struck by its scale. Towering ceilings stretched high above, dotted with floating lights that shimmered like stars. Delegates from hundreds of species filled the room, their forms and faces a testament to the diversity of the galaxy. Some were tall and crystalline, others short and covered in fine fur, and a few floated untethered by gravity. Lyria walked beside him, her luminous eyes scanning the crowd. Despite her silence, she radiated confidence and poise, a reminder that she was not just a princess but a representative of her people. Ethan had learned to interpret her subtle gestures, the way she tilted her head, the flicker of color in her eyes, and he had begun to understand her thoughts without words. The delegation was called to take their positions on the central dais. Humans and Xylarians stood side by side, a symbol of trust and growing cooperation. Ethan felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was more than a visitor now. He was a bridge between two species. As the meeting began, the High Chancellor of the Xylarians, a tall, shimmering figure named Thyron, addressed the assembly. His voice carried through the chamber, calm but commanding. "We gather here not only to discuss trade and diplomacy, but to ensure peace among the stars. The galaxy faces challenges and only unity can protect us all." Ethan listened intently. He noticed that some delegates whispered among themselves when their eyes briefly fell on him and Lyria. It was clear that not everyone approved of a human sharing space, let alone attention, with the princess. He felt Lyria's eyes flicker toward him, a subtle reassurance that she trusted him despite the whispers. The first topic of discussion was a trade agreement between multiple systems. Negotiations were tense, with representatives arguing over resource allocation, technology exchange, and territorial rights. Ethan observed carefully, noting the Xylarians' precise and deliberate communication style. They spoke in controlled tones, using both words and thought images to emphasize meaning. During a pause, a Xylarian noble, clearly irritated by Ethan's presence, approached the princess. His voice was sharp and formal. "Your Highness, I must remind you that associating with humans in this setting is irregular. It could be interpreted as favoritism or worse." Ethan stepped forward cautiously. "I respect your customs," he said. "I am only here because she allowed me. I mean no disrespect." Lyria's eyes shifted slightly, conveying calm but firm support. The noble's gaze flicked between her and Ethan, his expression unreadable. After a moment, he bowed slightly and moved away, muttering under his breath. Ethan exhaled quietly, grateful for her silent affirmation. The meeting resumed, but tensions lingered. Some delegates openly questioned the humans' ability to participate in complex negotiations. Ethan felt the weight of centuries of interstellar doubt pressing down on him. Humans were still young among the stars, often underestimated by older, more advanced civilizations. Yet he also knew that humans possessed unique qualities: empathy, adaptability, and courage. These traits often made the impossible achievable. During a recess, Lyria led Ethan to a quiet balcony overlooking the galaxy. Stars stretched infinitely in every direction, a dazzling tapestry of light and darkness. For a moment they were alone, separated from the scrutiny of the chamber. "I know this is complicated," Ethan said, his voice low. "I feel like I'm walking on thin ice sometimes. One wrong move and everything could go wrong." Lyria's eyes flickered a soft, steady glow. Ethan felt a wave of reassurance. Through her thought images, she conveyed understanding and patience. She had learned to trust him, and now she showed him that trust was mutual. They stood in silence for several minutes, simply observing the stars. Ethan realized that the universe was vast, filled with unknown dangers and opportunities. Yet in that moment, the connection between human and princess felt stronger than anything around them. Back in the chamber, discussions took a more personal turn. A representative from the Kryn Federation, a race of amphibious beings, raised concerns about human-Xylarian collaboration. "Humans are impulsive," he said, his voice dripping with skepticism. "They may admire your eyes, princess, but admiration does not equate to wisdom." Ethan's heart pounded. He wanted to respond, to defend himself, but he knew the value of patience. He caught Lyria's eye, and in that instant he understood. She didn't need him to argue. She needed him to remain calm, to show that humans were capable of composure and reason. When the floor opened for comments from delegates, Ethan spoke carefully. "We may be young as a species among the stars," he said, voice steady. "But humans value understanding and cooperation. We learn quickly, and we adapt. I hope my presence here demonstrates that our intentions are honest and that we seek unity, not discord." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some delegates nodded, impressed by his composure and clarity. Others remained skeptical, but the tension had shifted. It was a small victory, yet important. Humans were proving their worth not by force or technology, but by character. As the meeting progressed, Ethan observed subtle interactions between Lyria and other Xylarians. She maintained her calm demeanor, her eyes flickering with careful attention. Occasionally she glanced at him, a silent acknowledgement of his support. He felt a quiet pride. This partnership, simple in its honesty yet profound in impact, was slowly changing perceptions. Later, as the session ended, delegates began to depart, exchanging formal gestures and words. Some approached Ethan, offering cautious respect. Others whispered warnings, still wary of human influence. Lyria walked beside him, and for the first time she allowed a small gesture, a hand slightly brushing his arm, subtle yet deliberate. Ethan understood immediately: trust, friendship, and mutual respect. As they left the chamber, Ethan felt a mix of relief and exhilaration. The challenge had been greater than he anticipated, yet he had survived with integrity and, more importantly, had strengthened a bond with someone extraordinary. In the quiet of their shared quarters aboard the Starliner, Ethan reflected on the day. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, judged by history, appearance, or assumptions. Yet through honesty, empathy, and courage, they could carve a place for themselves, even in a universe filled with species far older and more advanced. Lyria stood nearby, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. She had not spoken a single word aloud, yet her presence communicated everything. She had witnessed his composure, his respect, and his patience. And in return, Ethan felt that he had glimpsed her understanding, her trust, and the beginnings of something profound, a connection that transcended species, culture, and spoken language. Before sleep, Ethan made a simple decision. He would continue to learn, to adapt, and to honor the trust Lyria had given him. The galaxy was full of challenges, and danger might come from places he could not yet imagine. But for now he had achieved something rare. He had proven that humans could matter, that humans could connect, and that humans could stand beside even the most extraordinary beings as equals, not outsiders. And as he drifted to sleep, he thought of Lyria's eyes, their shimmer, their warmth, their silent message. They were more than beautiful. They were a bridge between worlds, a reminder that empathy and honesty were universal languages, and that even in a galaxy filled with complex, the diplomatic voyage aboard the Orion Starliner was meant to be peaceful. Delegates from across the galaxy had debated, argued, and signed fragile agreements. Now the convoy of ships was returning to Xylarian space, escorted by several smaller vessels for safety. Ethan stood near the viewing port, gazing at the endless stretch of stars. The galaxy looked calm, but he had traveled long enough to know that appearances could be deceiving. Space was never truly safe. Princess Lyria joined him quietly. She stood beside him, her luminous eyes reflecting the starlight. She didn't speak, but Ethan felt her presence. Her calmness was comforting, yet beneath it he sensed a ripple of unease, faint but unmistakable. "Something feels off to you too, doesn't it?" Ethan whispered. He didn't expect her to reply, but her eyes flickered faintly in confirmation. Moments later, alarms echoed through the ship. The peaceful glow of the viewing port turned red as warning lights flashed across the corridors. Voices crackled through the communication system. "Unidentified ships approaching. All escorts prepare for combat." The Starliner shook as the first blast hit its shield, make a lasting difference. The convoy finally reached the Xylarian homeworld. After days of tension, the sight was breathtaking. From orbit, the planet glowed like a jewel in the darkness of space. Vast oceans shimmered with silver-blue light, while continents sparkled with towering crystal-like cities. Great rings circled the world, glowing faintly as if protecting it with an ancient shield. Ethan pressed against the viewing glass, unable to hide his awe. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Princess Lyria stood beside him, her radiant eyes fixed on her world. Her thoughts brushed gently against his mind, pride, longing, and a trace of sadness. For her, this was home, but Ethan sensed she feared what awaited them. The Starliner descended slowly, escorted by sleek Xylarian fighters. As they entered the atmosphere, Ethan saw glowing spires that touched the clouds, floating gardens suspended by invisible energy, and great rivers that shone like liquid crystal. It was unlike anything on Earth. Yet beneath the wonder, Ethan noticed something else. Military ships filled the skies. Defense towers lined the cities. This was not just a peaceful paradise, it was a fortress. When the Starliner landed, a vast crowd awaited. Soldiers stood in perfect lines, their armor gleaming like polished silver. Nobles in flowing robes gathered at the steps of a massive palace made of shining stone and light. Ethan felt every eye on him. Whispers filled the air as he walked beside Lyria. "A human? Why is he here? He does not belong among us." The Xylarian people had seen humans before, but never one walking side by side with their princess. The tension was clear. A tall, stern figure stepped forward. His robes glowed faintly with embedded jewels of power, and his crown-like headpiece marked him as someone of authority. Ethan guessed this was the High Chancellor, second only to the Queen. "Princess Lyria," the Chancellor said in a deep, commanding voice. "We welcome your safe return. But who is this outsider you bring into our sacred halls?" Lyria's eyes glowed faintly. Her thoughts brushed against Ethan's, urging him to stay calm. She raised her hand and spoke for the first time since they met. Her voice was melodic, soft yet commanding. "This is Ethan, a human traveler. He saved my life and the lives of all aboard our convoy." Gasps rippled through the nobles. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "A human saved you? Impossible. They are a primitive species. Surely you exaggerate." Ethan felt anger rise in his chest, but he held it back. He wasn't here to prove himself with pride. He let Lyria speak for him. "He used strategy unlike ours," Lyria said. "He saw paths we did not. Without him, the pirates would have taken me." The Chancellor studied Ethan with sharp eyes. Perhaps. Or perhaps the pirates' attack was staged. Perhaps this human was involved. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Suspicion filled the air. Ethan clenched his fists. He had expected distrust, but hearing the accusation cut deep. He wanted to shout, but then he saw Lyria's calm gaze. She believed in him. That was enough. The Queen herself entered then, and silence fell. She was tall and graceful, her gown shimmering with threads of starlight. Her eyes glowed even brighter than Lyria's, and Ethan could see where the princess had inherited her strength. "Enough," the Queen said, her voice echoing like music. "Bring them inside. We will speak privately." Inside the great palace, Ethan marveled at the halls carved from glowing stone. Floating orbs of light illuminated murals of Xylarian history, wars, alliances, and the rise of their empire. In the throne chamber, the Queen sat upon a seat that looked as if it had been carved from a single piece of crystal. Lyria knelt before her mother, and Ethan, unsure of the custom, bowed awkwardly. "Rise," the Queen said gently. She studied Ethan carefully. "You are human, the child of a young race, yet my daughter speaks highly of you." Ethan swallowed, then spoke with honesty. "I don't know much about your ways, Your Majesty." But I know this, when pirates attacked, I couldn't just stand by. I did what I thought was right. Not as a soldier, not as a hero, just as a human who saw someone in danger. The Queen's eyes softened, though her expression remained firm. Courage and honesty, traits your kind is known for. Still, I must ask, why risk so much for one not of your people? Ethan paused. The answer came easily. Because life matters. Whether human or Xylarian, we all share the same stars. If I can help, I will. A quiet silence followed. Then for the first time, Ethan felt something shift. The Queen did not smile, but her gaze held respect. But the Chancellor was not convinced. He stepped forward. Your Majesty, we cannot trust this. The pirates were too organized. They knew our roots. There is a traitor among us, and perhaps this human is part of it. The Queen frowned. Do you have proof, Chancellor? Not yet, he admitted. But I will find it. Ethan felt the tension rise. He was being watched, judged, perhaps even framed. Later, Lyria guided Ethan to her private chambers. Her thoughts pressed against his mind, carrying feelings of frustration and worry. She wanted him to know she believed in him, no matter what the Chancellor said. Ethan sat on the balcony, gazing at the shining city. Your people don't trust me. Some of them hate me. Lyria stepped closer. Her thoughts painted an image in his mind. Two paths, one filled with thorns, the other leading to light. It was her way of saying trust would come, but only through hardship. He nodded. Then I'll earn it. If there's a traitor, I'll help find them. I won't let them blame me. That night, the palace shook with sudden chaos. Explosions rang in the distance, alarms blared, and ships roared through the skies. Ethan leapt to his feet. Soldiers rushed past, shouting warnings. Sabotage. Enemy agents inside the city! The Chancellor appeared, his robes torn, shouting over the noise. The human. He is the cause. Seats him. Soldiers moved forward, but Lyria stood before Ethan, her eyes glowing fiercely. For the first time, she spoke aloud with power and command. No. Her voice cut through the air like lightning. He is not the traitor. I will prove it. The Queen entered, flanked by guards. Her expression was grim. The attack proves it. Someone fed information to the enemy. We must uncover the truth. Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady. Then let me help. Humans think differently. I saw the pirates' tactics before. If I study this attack, maybe I can trace their pattern back to the one who betrayed you. The Queen studied him again, her glowing eyes deep and unreadable. Then she gave a single nod. Very well, human. You will have your chance. Prove your loyalty. Ethan felt the weight of the galaxy pressing on him. The path ahead was dangerous, but he would not turn away. For the first time, humanity's worth would be tested not in battle, but in truth, loyalty, and courage. And as Lyria's eyes glowed softly at his side, Ethan knew he was not alone. Together they would face the storm. The city still burned in places when dawn came. From the palace balcony, Ethan watched smoke rise above the crystal towers. Xylarian soldiers rushed through the streets searching for enemy agents. The attack had shaken the homeworld. But the greater danger was not the destruction outside. It was the suspicion inside the palace walls. Ethan could feel it in every stare, every whisper. To many Xylarian nobles, he was still the outsider. Lyria joined him silently, her eyes glowing with calm strength. Her thoughts touched his mind with an image of a storm breaking into sunlight. She was reminding him darkness never lasted forever. Ethan nodded. We'll find the traitor. Then they'll know the truth. The Queen's command that morning, the Queen gathered her council in the throne chamber. Guards stood at every door, their weapons ready. Nobles and generals filled the hall, voices sharp with fear and anger. The Queen raised her hand. Silence fell. Last night, enemies attacked the heart of our world. They struck with precision. Someone among us fed them information. This betrayal will not go unanswered. Her glowing eyes swept across the hall before settling on Ethan. The human claims he can see what we cannot. Very well. He shall assist in uncovering the traitor. If he succeeds, he earns his place. If he fails... The Queen did not finish. She didn't need to. Everyone knew what it meant. Ethan felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. This was no longer about survival. It was about proving humanity's worth to a people who doubted it. Following the clues, Ethan began by studying the attack. He spent hours in the war room, watching hollow recordings of pirate ships striking the city. He noticed their attacks weren't random. They had targeted weak points in the defense grid, places only someone inside the palace would know. He pointed at the map. See this? They ignored most defenses. They went straight for the energy nodes. Someone told them where to strike. The generals muttered among themselves, but one noble scoffed. You speak as if you are one of us, human. What makes you so sure? Ethan looked him in the eye. Because pirates don't waste time. They're greedy, not strategic. Somebody guided them. It was logic, not emotion. Slowly, a few heads nodded. Next, Ethan asked to review the palace's communication logs. Xylarian officers hesitated. No outsider had ever been allowed near such data. But Lyria spoke up, her voice calm but firm. If he cannot see the records, he cannot help us. Let him work. Reluctantly, the officers agreed. Hours later, Ethan found something, a faint signal hidden inside normal transmissions. At first glance, it looked like background noise. But to human eyes, used to finding patterns in chaos, it was too regular. Too deliberate, Ethan tapped the screen. Here. Someone inside piggybacked their message on top of normal traffic. They disguised it so your scanners woo.